the evaluation context. This is very important topic. If you wanted to, if you want to master the DAX functions, this is the foundation. Okay, it is crucial to understand the evaluation context. What exactly the evaluation context? Okay, to start with, let us understand the basic level of the concept, and then I will proceed with taking a deep dive. Okay. What is evaluation context? Evaluation context is nothing but the environment in which a DAX formula is evaluated in. When we write a DAX function or formula, what happens is it gets evaluated within that environment. In simple terms, the evaluation context applies before the DAX formula evaluates. To make it a bit clear, the result written by the DAX function can be different depending on the context, even if the DAX formula used is the same. For example, what I will do is, if I talk too much of theory, you will get confused. I'll just, in this case, I just remove the sales and profit now for the time being. And I'm going to drag and drop a text column. Okay. In this case, I just drop the column category here. And I want the category column to be displayed first. How do I change the order here? You just go to the columns section here, and here you just move this up. When you move this up, your category will be your first column. The second column is your total sales measure. Got it? Okay. But what did you notice here? Look here, I'm going to remove the category here. Listen very carefully. When I drop the measure, the total sales measure, it gives me the total sales like the implicit measure. Okay, when I drag and drop the sales column, it gives me the same thing. But since as per the best practice, I have created the explicit measure wherein I use the sum of sales in this column. And if I drop this measure here, it gives me the total sales. Okay, but when you drop any category column, for example, if you drop segment, I just start with segment. Segment is a categorical column, right? It has a categorical value or text column. And if I move this up here, and it gives me the breakup automatically. Initially, it was showing only the total sales, but the moment when I dropped a text column along with this one, it gives me the breakdown of sales by segment. Out of this total sales, how much total sales we made in consumer out of this total, how much sales we made in corporate segment out of this total. Forget about this record. You just think, this record is not, there are some blank values other, you can ignore it. Okay. And how much total sales we made out of this total in home office. Did I write any DAX function to give this breakdown? No, I did not write any DAX function. All I created was a measure wherein I use the sum function, sum of total sales, that's all. I did not write any logic to give the breakdown of sales by segment also, isn't it? This is automatic. Along with the measure, whether it's an implicit measure or explicit measure, when you drop a text column, Power BI, what it does is it gives you the breakdown of sales or breakdown of the measure by the categorical columns values. In this case, the measure is the sales and the total sales. It gives me the breakdown of sales by segment. And next, I will create another table. I'm going to use the same measure here. Total sales measure. In this case, what I do is I just drag and drop another text column along with this measure. If I drag and drop any text column, especially the categorical column, it gives you the breakdown of sales by that text columns or the categorical column. In this case, I'm going to drop the category column here. And if I go here and if I change the column order to make sure that the first column is category column, now also we can see the same thing here, isn't it? It gives me the breakdown of sales by category. Out of this total sales, how much total sales we made in each and every category. In this case, if you compare these two table visual, the total sales are same. It is matching with this one, isn't it? Both the tables, the total sales are matching. But the rows, the values in the rows are not matching. Okay. So why? Okay. Now the question is, the first question is, how is it possible? How it gives me the breakdown automatically? This is very specific. That's the reason why Power BI is compared to Excel, right? It is dynamic, right? It gives me this one. Okay. This is a salient feature of one of the salient features of Power BI. In both the visuals, I did not use any formula, DAX formula in relation to segment or in relation to category. All we wanted the total sales, but the moment when I dropped next to this measure a text column and next to this when I dropped a text column, it automatically gives me the breakdown of sales by segment. In this case, sales breakdown by category, it gives me here. But for each row, we get different values, though the total values are same. How do we get different values on each row? This is because evaluation context. The formula total sales was evaluated based on the environment. The moment when you drop the category, so based on the category, this total sales was evaluated. It gives me the breakdown of category. Okay, sales breakdown by category. It gives me the sales breakdown by segment. So what is happening behind the scene is it applies a filter. For example, in this case, the segment column is available in this table. Supposing this segment column is available, let's in some dimension table. So what happens is whether it's available in the same table or dimension, that doesn't matter. But it does the filtering. What it does is it takes the entire column and then it groups all the consumer related data and then it applies sum on the sales column. Okay, it applies the sum on this one. Okay, and then it returns this value. And similarly, corporate, the records, it will group it and then it performs the sum of sales on this one. And similarly, it does this one. Filtering, it does the filtering. Okay, it does the filtering. In this case, it does the filtering by segment column. In this case, it does the filtering of your table by category column. So you remember when I explained you what is filtering as part of data model design. Data model design. What is filtering? What is the filtering here? So in the case of, for example, I will take, do I have the sales fact table? Let me just check here. Yes, I do have the sales fact table and I keep this aside for the moment. And then what I will do is I will just create a table here, another table, and then here what I do is I'm going to use the value from a sales fact table, which one? The sales here, the sales amount, I drop it here. But this table is different from this table. In this table, the total sales is this one. I'm going to create the duplicate of this one. So in this case also what I will do in these two tables, I'm going to use different categorical column. But in this case, what I do is I'm going to bring in the categorical column from the other table called dimension table. Okay, the dimension tables, we have different dimension tables. For example, the customer name. And when I drop the customer name here, it gives me the sales breakdown by each customer. Out of this total sales, how much money in total sent by Chris, by keeping in mind of all the transactions in the sales fact table. Okay, it is not about specific date also, right? Specific year. Okay. And the next one is I just go to the product table. And do we have any location here? Let me just see. Yeah, location table is there. Location name. I'm going to use the location name. Yes. I'm going to drop this column here from the, sorry, not the location name is available here itself. Okay, okay. We don't have the dim location table. Okay, let's not use this column. And instead, I'll just use the product name from my product dimension table. I'm going to reorder the column. This is the total for all the transactions in this data file, right? So put together, what is the total sales? And out of this total sales, how much total sales we make in each product, it gives me the breakdown automatically. In this case, what happens is the customer name from your customer dimension table, right? The customer dimension table filters your sales fact table. How it gives the breakdown? They will ask you this question: how does the breakdown of sales by customer name was given here? Because you have defined the relationship between these two tables, because of which it is happening. Go to the data model here, and then if you see here, look here, the sales fact table. You need to look at only this part, okay, and this one. The product customer dimension is linked with this one, fact table. The customer dimension is filtering this table. So what do you mean by filtering? It goes the first customer name. First customer name is Chris, and then it passes the value to this one. It groups all the transactions related to Chris. Chris purchased in this year. Well, let's say in the sales fact table, we have 1 year data in it. In the 1 year, the Chris, you would have purchased at different time. All the records, all the invoices, all the transactions that are related to Chris will get grouped automatically, and then it applies the sum on the sales amount column automatically. Next question is, okay, do I have to use sum all the time? Is there, yeah, in that case, you can go and use another measure, copy paste the same measure. Okay, and in that case, what you do is you can use average function. Okay. So now you understood. So in this case, I just look at the sales amount. I dropped it here directly here. Ideally, we should have created a explicit measure, but any of for demonstrations I've already explained you, right? Then you are able to understand, right? So now the point here is the customer dimension table is filtered in the fact table, because of which it gives me the breakdown of sales by customer name. In this case, the product dimension table filters the sales fact table. Hence, it gives me the breakdown of sales by product. Here, the environments are changing. Though the total sales is same, but the environments are different. What do you mean by the environment? In this case, the customer dimension filters the fact table, product table filters this sales fact table. Hence, the environment change, because of which the row values are not same, but the total values obviously, because we are working with the full table, entire table, right? The total sales are same here. Now you understood what is evaluation context. Evaluation context is nothing but the environment in which a DAX formula is evaluated. This DAX formula is evaluated based on this environment. In simple term, filtering. So, and then as part of the evaluation context, there are two types of context are there. One is the row context, other one is filter context. Let me see how many of you have watched very carefully when I explained about row context. When did I use this term? When did I use this term? Can you all please type it in the chat window? Yes, very good, Abdul. You are correct. Sai Sudha, you are correct. Sushmita, you are correct. How about others? How about others? How about others? I discussed about the row context a while back. How many of you remember this one? Calculated column. When I discussed about the calculated column, what did I say? In the case of calculated column, it performs the calculation row by row. It is also called as a row context. Next one is the filter context. Okay. So now we will understand, the three. So see, if you look at the internet, you can see the three types of context. Right. So usually they represent the types of context as, the two things. One is the row context and filter context. But somewhere in the net, you can see that in some, the blogs or some article, they've used the query context. The query context is nothing but the combination of these two, okay, the row or filter context. Based on the context that you use it, right? So the query context will be either a row context or the filter context, okay? Okay, so in this case, you understood what is the row context. In a calculate column, the calculation is done row by row, and the row context is evaluated whenever an expression iterates over a table. And the row context exists in a calculated column or iterating DAX function. They will ask you this question. So can you tell me where the row context is used? The row context is done. So in the case of calculated column, row context is done. That means the row context comes into picture. The row context exists in the calculated column because, as the name suggests, calculated column. The calculations performed row by row in the case of calculated column. In that case, the row context comes into picture because it performs the calculation row by row. And apart from this, the iterating function like sumx, averagex, countx, countax, wherever the iterating function that you use it, in that case also it performs row by row operation. It goes row by row, each row one at a time, and then it evaluates your expression. The row context exists in calculated column as well as in the iterating DAX functions. The row context does not propagate through relationship automatically. Okay, I am using a calculator column, and for example, my cost price is available in my product dimension table. In the sales fact table, I don't have the cost price. The cost price is available in my other table. In that case, the row context, it will not propagate the relationship through automatically. Okay, so you need to use a function, explicit function. Here's something related and related table, which I will discuss it later. Now, to summarize, the row context iterates the table, but it does not filter. It goes row by row, and then it applies the calculation, but it does not. It cannot filter it. The next one is the filter context. The filter context used whenever a measure is calculated. Okay, and it is a set of filters applied to a data model before evaluation of a DAX expression being started. If, for example, you have something like quantity into price, that is an expression. Before even performing the calculation, okay, a set of filters will be applied to a data model, and then only your expression will get evaluated. One or more applied in a calculation to determine a value. Okay, one or more filter can be. For example, I wanted to see the sum of sales in the California. Okay, in USA, right? So the one or filter. So in this case, the filter is where the city is equal to San Francisco and year equal to 2014. You can apply more than one filter. See, don't get confused with this term. It's a context. Okay, most of them they get confused. You simply ignore this one. You just think filter. One or more filters applied in the calculation to determine a value. This is quick tip. Okay, most of them they get confused. The context. Okay. You can apply more than one filter, right, to perform a calculation. I want to see the total sales in 2014. in San Francisco city. So in that case, we are applying more than one filter. It's as simple as that. The filter can be applied using visuals and DAX also. This is also an important point that you need to remember it. If you understand it, nothing is there. The filter is applied using visuals and DAX also. You remember that DAX function, filter function, I explained you. The filter function I mentioned about the units sold is greater than 6. That is a filter. The DAX function, the filter can be applied using the DAX function. That is the example. And other one is the visuals. In the case of visuals, what happens? The row context. See, in this case, so what is the filter for this value? The CRIS, a row. The row CRIS, gives me this one. In the sense, out of this total sales, the total sales or the amount spent by Chris was obtained by applying the filter on this one. Okay, and the Hamel. Okay, for the Hamel, out of the total sales, we are applying the filter only for the Hamel. Hey, give me the total transactions or the total sales we have done to Hamel out of the total sales. So in this case, the filter comes from the row. Remember this is very important. That's it, guys. Now, now we'll have to understand the sources of filter. The where and all sources. In this case, the visual, right? The row filter, row level, row selection, and then column selection, and then filter selection, slices selection, and matrix visual based on row and column data fields. Now what I do is I just go here and then I convert this as a matrix. Okay, okay, let it be there. Okay, and I just move this up and I'm going to take a duplicate of this one. I'm going to copy paste this one. And in this case, what I do is I just go here and in the columns, I'm going to use another text column. Okay, here the date column was not okay linked there. Okay, let's use the product name itself in the same table matrix. I'm going to drop the product name here. Since the number of customers are less, we will put the customer in the columns here. Okay. What I will do is I just minimize this. And if you see here, the filter for the first row for this value, if you see this value, the filter is coming from this visual matrix, isn't it? So the total sales is 4,56,000. And in this case, we have only two columns. One is the text column. For this value, the filter comes from this row. For this, the filter comes from this row. The same thing is applicable here also. For this value, the filter comes from this row, cashew nut, and this column. The row column combination, it applied the filter out of this total sales. Okay. See, if I ask you how much amount spent by Chris in total out of this total sales, you say 2,27,000. If I go one step further and ask you another question, okay, can you tell me how much money is spent in total in purchasing cashew nut? So here you put Chris here and you are filtering by Chris by product name cashew nut to arrive this value. It's simple. One second, I will just show you. So how about others? Are you all able to follow me here? Just in Excel also we do filter, right? For example, expenses. I have something called expenses table. And okay, where is the Excel file? I just want to use an Excel file. Yeah, this is the one. I just open it. If I ask you, 1 second, if I go here, okay. If I ask you, can you tell me in year 2020, in quarter 1, how much sales we made? What you will do? So how much expenses we incurred? In quarter 1, in year 2020, how much sales? How do you do that? If you have more number of records, so you cannot go literally by the eyeball, right? You cannot do everything by eyeballing. What you do is you just go here, the menu in Excel, and then you go to the data menu, and then you select filter. Okay, sorry, you just select everything here, and then you go to data here and you filter it. Use the filter. In this case, what you do is you just select the year 2020, and the next question was the quarter 1, and here you need to apply the Q1 here. Okay, year 2020 month. Okay, let me just do one thing. I just remove this filter here. Okay, I used on all the columns. That is the problem. Okay, and here just unselect everything, and I just use the year and quarter. Okay, and when I go to the data column, and if I use the filter, okay, it cannot be done on a specific column. Or let us do one thing, simple thing. Why do we need to break our filter quarter here? And if I select the Q1 alone here, it gives me the thing, because here we have 2020 is not there. Okay, in your data set, let's say you have 2020 is available here. And if I ask you, so here you have filtered on the column and the row. Okay, what you do is you just select 2020 alone and then click on OK. Now you can see that for year 2020, you have applied the filter on these two columns, right? And to get the total expenses that you incurred in year 2020 quarter 1, what is it? The sum of 23,000. The same thing is happening here also. But here, you don't have to do the filtering manually. It does the filtering automatically. In the case of cashew nut product, Chris has spent in total $1,395 out of this total sales. So out of this total sales, okay, 4,56,000. But this is the out of the total sales. And look here, another beautiful thing here. Okay, out of the total sales, out of the total amount spent by Chris, how much money is spent in cashew nut? Look here, you get two insight here. Okay, out of the what the total is 4,56,000, and out of the 4,56,000, how much money spent by Chris in purchasing cashew nut? Or not the cashew nut, how much money spent by Chris? This is the one, 2,27,000. Out of this total, 2,27,000 is spent. The next question is, out of this 2,27,000, how much is spent on cashew nut? Excellent. Hope all of you are able to understand it. How many of you are not able to understand? Abdul. Okay, Abdul says he's able to understand. Very good. And how about Sai Sudha? You are able to understand. Okay, very good. And how about others? How about others? Are you able to understand or not? See, in this case, what happens is, okay, I will explain you with this one so that you'll be able to understand further. Okay, now what I will do is since you need some more time to understand, I will ask you this question. Okay, if you answer this question, you'll be able to understand, that one. Okay, what is the initial filter context for this cell, which is highlighted in the red color rectangle? What is the initial filter context for this one? 7,986. Initial filter context coming from Hyderabad. Got it? See the Excel, whatever I've shown you, you just think Hyderabad, right? When you filter it on Hyderabad, and if you calculate the total sales, it gives me that one. The initial filter context for this highlighted cell is 7,000. It comes from Hyderabad. Look at the highlighted value 7,986 as a filter context for the city Hyderabad. Initial filter context for the highlighted cell is only coming from the rows in this matrix from the location Hyderabad for this. So what is happening? This is what is happening behind the scene. So you have the location The location name comes from another table, and this is available in the other table, sales fact table. And if you notice it very carefully here, sorry. In this case, what happens is, look at this diagram, a model. Okay, here the location dimension, and then fact sales got linked here. We create the relations between these two. How we created? Location key and location key. Because the location key is common between these two tables, you can create the relationship between these two tables based on the location key only. Once you create it, you are done. Next, what happens is, when you drag and drop the total sales, it gives you the total sales. Along with that, if you drop the location name, it gives you the sales breakdown by location. How it is happening? Because of the relationship. In this case, what happens is, Hyderabad. In the case of Hyderabad, what happens is, it passes this value to this table. It propagates the location key Hyderabad to this fact table. This is a transaction table. In Hyderabad, it grouped all the records that are related to Hyderabad, and then it applies the sum on the sales amount, and finally it gives us in Hyderabad a summarized value. So if you add all this value, whatever you get, that is what it gives you. Okay, but this is what is happening behind the scene. But according to us, we just see only the summarized value here. Okay, we don't have to worry what is happening behind the scene, but this is very much important for you to understand the behind the scenes thing. Okay, what is happening under the hood or behind the scenes? You need to be able to understand very clearly here. Okay, and then the next one is another exercise, because this is very important. That's the reason why I used more than one exercise. And can you tell me, for this highlighted particular cell, where the initial filter context comes? The initial filter coming from which all cells? Can you all type it in the chat window quickly? All of you, please. I need all your contribution. Yes, Abdul mentioned clearly. Very good. And Sai Sudha, yes, good. And Soundarya, very good. How about others? Are you there in the call or not? So in this case, the filter comes from Hyderabad and dairy, correct? Dairy. With this combination, it gives me this one. Okay, if you see here, the highlighted cell showing 5,395, it has a filter context for the location as well, location Hyderabad, as well as the product category of dairy. Very good, Rashmi. Good. Not only dairy, okay, it comes from Hyderabad also. Okay, row filter, column filter. This is called the look here. This is what I mentioned here in matrix visual, based on row and column data files. Also, the filter context is happening. That is the reason why I did not explain it, just before this, because you will not understand. With the example only, you will be able to understand. Now you are able to understand with the row and column. Also, in the case of matrix visual or the visuals, right? In general, what happens is the filter comes from the row as well as the column here. In this case, okay. And next, you tell me for this highlighted value 200, what is the initial filter context for this particular cell? You will be tempted to say, obviously, in Bangalore, in ice cream, what is the total sales? Okay, in this case, the location table filters your sales fact table, and at the same time, product table filters your sales fact table. Two tables are filtering, because in the rows you've used one column, the columns you used another column, but in the rows, whatever the column that you used it, that comes from location table. The columns, whatever you used, this product name. So nothing but the product name comes from a product table. Fine. So here, but is that correct? In addition to that, we have a slicer here. So what happens is, in Bangalore, how much total sales we made in ice cream for August month? It applies three conditions here. In simple term, three filter conditions, that's all. And if you see here, the highlighted cell showing 200 as a filter context for the location Bangalore, where the product of ice cream and the month is August. Excellent. But behind the scene, this is what is happening. Like I said, you have a product dimension and then you have the calendar dimension. This is the calendar. This is the column is your product dimension. And then you have the product calendar location. Okay. So in this case, okay, the location table is missing. Okay, you assume that you have another table called location here. Okay, what happens is the product table, it filters ice cream. Okay. When this encounter, when it goes to the first row in the visual, what happens is, right, before display, everything is happening in a matter of milliseconds. When it goes to the first row and the second column, it goes and check, hey, it goes and filters, hey, send the ice cream, filter the ice cream in the product dimension table. And then in the, okay, it is there here. Yeah, I did not miss it. In the location table, you filter only the Bangalore. All we need is Bangalore ice cream. Only these two, only this record from this table, and then send this value to this table. And August, in addition to the August, send only the August to this one. With all these three conditions, matching to these three conditions, select all the records matching to this condition and apply the sum on that. Whatever the output that you get it, that is what you can see it here. But the relationship is important here. If you don't have a relationship, then it will not work. You understood? I think you're all pretty clear on this one. Okay, the question now is, what do you mean by filter context in DAX? Now, how many types of filter contexts are there? Row filter, row selection, column selection, and the slicer selection. You can use a filter also. You have something called filter, isn't it? The filter pane. You can use it from there also. Okay. And yeah. So how many types of filter contexts are there? Okay, these are the things. And you can use DAX calculations, DAX functions also. When we are applying filters on set of columns or tables, using DAX calculation, this is known as filter context. In our DAX expression, which one will execute first? Filter context rule. It's very, very important question. This is PL 300 certification exam question. In a DAX expression, which one will execute first? Filter context or row context? Take the simple example, sum of sales. Okay, and before executing that, okay, what happens is here whether it execute the row context or filter context, which one will get? The first one is the filter context applies on top of other context. First filter context, and if there is a row context either, and then the row context will be done. Okay. And why the filter context is applied first? This is a very basic thing. And if you have worked on the advanced part of SQL query tuning, you must be not only SQL tuning and any other data analytics project, you must be knowing this. For example, I have a table. This is my sales table. It's a transaction table. Here I have, let's say, 10 million records are there. Let's say here in Pune, we just now started our retail store just a week back. So hence, out of 100 million, in Pune, we have only 1,000 records are there. 1,000 transactions only happened so far since the last 1 week. Okay. In this case, what happens? The filter context is applied first. Where city is equal to Pune will be applied first. For example, you want to perform the quantity into sales. You want to take the product of quantity in sales. This is the expression you want to evaluate, row by row, you want to evaluate it. But, right, so whether the row context will work first or the filter context, only the filter context will come first. If the filter context doesn't come first, what will happen? It has to use this calculation for the 10 million records. And then if you filter Pune, it doesn't make sense, isn't it? That is not the wise way of doing it, isn't it? First, you subset the data. 10 million records. If you filter the records related to Pune, yes, you are having only 1,000 records now. And then if you do the calculation, if you apply the calculation on these 1,000 records, it will be pretty faster, isn't it? This is the right way of doing it, isn't it? Okay. It's something like a courier person. You mentioned the door number, fine. With the door number, it's kind of a filter. You just directly come to your house and then you deliver it. If you don't specify the door number, what will happen? In your street, 1,000 houses are there. He has to go each and every house and then go and check whether this person is there or not. Okay, Sai Sudha is there here, or Abdul is there here, because the door number was not mentioned. And for example, in the case of Rashmi, right? It has to go he has to go each and every house and ask, whether Rashmi is there living in this house. If you mention the door number, it's kind of filter. First, he applies the filter and goes directly here and goes and deliver it. The filter, right? It's something like filtering it. Out of the 1,000 houses, you are filtering it based on the door number in this case. Okay, in this case, the city name. First, the same thing is applicable in the case of SQL query also. Remember this. Even when you use Python, in Python, we're using pandas package. You need to make sure that you're, using the filtering condition. Okay, this is how it works. And the next one is what is the difference between evaluation context and filter context? The filter context is one type of your evaluation context. That's all. This is PL 300 certification question. Okay, just a tricky question. That's all. Okay, because in the evaluation context, there are two contexts. One is the filter context, row context. The difference, if they ask between these two, is nothing but the filter context is part of your evaluation context. That's all. What is applied as part of the filter context? Rows, columns, slices, filters, on-screen visuals, plus calculate function. Okay. Now you understood, right? What is rows and columns? Now you understood. Okay. The next one is the difference between implicit and explicit. I already explained you. And what is query context? The combination of row and filters create the final query for your DAX. You define this as the combination of row and filter. That is what I said earlier. Okay. If they ask you what is query context, don't tell me that I did not cover it. Yes, this is the part. What is applied as part of filter context? And what is initial filter context? This one we already discussed it. Okay. And now the question is it possible to use filter context along with the row context? Is it possible to do that? Can I combine these two things? You know very well in the case of calculator column, the row context is used. But the row context, it doesn't do the filter, whereas the filter context cannot do the row by row operation. You need to remember this one. Can I use these two things together? Yes. Rashmi says yes. Very good. So how can you use it? How can you use it? Give me an example. Take this data set and give me an answer quickly. If I go here, can you tell me what can we do? Or can I create a measure or can I create... okay, in the interest of time, I just click on the new page. And what I'll do is I'll go to the modeling ribbon, click on the measure. Here, what I do is I want to calculate commission for my salespeople. Commission is equivalent to sum x function. Here, the first one is the table name. Instead of table name, what I do is because I want to demonstrate whether I can use the filter context with the row context or the opposite, row context with filter context. Is it possible? Yes. Here, what I do is I'm using the filter function here. Here, I'm going to use the fact sales fact table. And the first argument is supposed to be table because filter is also an iterating function. And here the sales fact table as what column in it? Sales amount. Here I'm going to use this one. If the sales amount is greater than or equal to 500, so those transactions, the sales value is either 500 or more than 500. And here comma, and here the sales fact. In the sales fact, what I do is I'm going to say the in this case sales amount into 0. 0 to 0.10%. I mean, I want to give 10% commission for those transactions. My sales people, achieved more than 500 or more than 500. In this case, the SumX function performs the row by row operation. It evaluates this condition row by row. Okay, and then it performs this computation row by row. But here, right, so here the SumX function does the row by row operation. In this case, this is a calculation, isn't it? This is the this calculation needs to be applied row by row. But before you apply this, you apply this filter context. Don't apply row by row for the entire record. Let's assume that the sales fact have 10 million records. Don't blindly apply this calculation directly. Instead, use the filter. First, you filter the data and then you apply this one. And I'm going to press enter. In this case, the filter function is nothing but the filter context. So this is how you can use the row context along with the filter context. What is the row context here? Because the SumX function, what it does the row by row, not only the calculated column, it performs the row by row operation. It goes each and every row. Even in the case of SumX function, the iterating function, it iterates row by row. In this case, it applies this expression or the calculation each and every row. But before applying this, the filter is applied. On top of this, this one is performed. So this is a solid example for row context with filter context. Filter by location, name, and dairy. Okay. So this is visual level filter, right? In the visual level, we have used the row and column filter. Okay. So in that case, row and column filter was used, but row is a filter and column is also a filter. Okay. There was no row context. Row context is anything you do it row by row operation. That is what your row context. Please remember that. Okay. The filter context filters the data. It does not iterate. Filter context filter, it does not iterate. And the row context iterates the tool, but it does not filter. But you can, use the filter context along with the row context. But each of them are mutually exclusive. Okay, what is, to summarize, what is evaluation context? Evaluation context is the context which modifies the value of your DAX expression, okay, by filtering your data model and providing the concept of current row when needed to access a column name, okay. The evaluation context consists of two parts. That is what we discussed, the row context and filter context. And also we have discussed about query context. Query context is nothing but the combination row and filter context, okay. And the DAX creates a row context automatically in the case of calculated column. So we can also create a row context programmatically using the iterator function like SumX. Okay, and the other point is you can nest a row context in the case, using functions like earlier. There's something called earlier function, DAX function. In that case, you can nest the row context also. That probably we will see at later point in time. Okay. So these are the points that you need to remember it as far as the evaluation context is concerned. Hope you understood the evaluation context part.